Chelsea, one of the most successful English clubs of the last 2 decades, has seen managers come and go since Roman Abramovich took over in 2003. Hey guys, it's Raf. To date, Chelsea have sacked 15 managers since 2003, with Claudio Ranieri being the first to be dismissed in May 2004, despite leading the club to second in the Premier League and the semi-finals of the Champions League. This decision set the tone for the many manager sackings that followed, with many leaving after just a short stint in charge. Despite the high turnover of managers, this approach has yielded significant success on the field, winning numerous domestics and European trophies over the past 2 decades. However, it has also raised concerns about the club's stability and long-term future, because for the first time, it has actually affected the team's results. And for a club that won the Champions League in just 2001, the fall from grace has been steep, starting with Abramovich being forced to sell Chelsea, and ends with new owner Todd Boehly making mistake after mistake since his takeover. Let's start with this. At the time of Tuchel's sacking, Chelsea were 6th in the Premier League. He had come in and replaced Frank Lampard in January 2021, working wonders to help the club finish in the top 4 and claiming their 2nd Champions League triumph in the space of just 5 months. But after a summer of disagreements over transfer targets, especially when Todd wanted to sign Ronaldo whilst every other top club was trying to stay away, he was given the sack just weeks into the season. Then, signing Graham Potter seemed like the best decision Todd had made since he took over Chelsea. He brought many of his backroom staff from Brighton and bought him a load of players, including the ones he bought for the previous manager. Boehly probably thought he had given Graham Potter all the resources required to be successful, but funnily enough, that was part of the manager's demise. There were just an unmanageable number of players to train and pick for each game. But after the team continued to struggle to find consistency, Boehly decided enough was enough and he fired the man he spent 22 million to take from Brighton only 6 months prior, sacking 2 managers in his first season at the club, very much like someone we know. So, if you had all the money in the world, would you not buy every single player you wanted for your club? Todd Boehly spent a monstrous 600 million on transfers in just 5 months across the summer and January transfer windows, bringing in. And if that wasn't enough, Chelsea are basically trying to con the financial fair play regulations by spreading out player contracts over an extended period of time to balance out their books. To put it simply, because they can't justify their spending according to their earnings during this short space of time, they handed out absurdly long contracts to a majority of the players they signed. Star signings like Mykhailo Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez put pen to paper on 8.5-year deals. That's some players' whole careers. So the spread goes something like this. Mudryk joined the club for around 89 million, but that fee will be recorded on the club's books at around 10 million per year being paid out to Shakhtar Donetsk. And for UEFA's FFP calculations, they can only count the 10 million within the fiscal year, not the full 89. However, UEFA have reacted by shutting the loophole, deciding that from this summer onwards, clubs will be limited to spreading out the cost of fees to a 5-year period. But for Chelsea and Todd, the harm has already been done. The clear mismanagement and not knowing anything about football was clear to see. Let me show you why. The previous season, Chelsea's top scorer with just 11 goals was their midfielder Mason Mount. So as a top level team, what would be your priority? Striker, right? Well, not for Todd. He spent 122 million on central midfielders, 137 million on centre-backs, 84 million on full-backs, 204 million on wingers alone. Then, for the striking department, they got 21 millions to party with. If you say Aubameyang and David Fofana were the answer, from all these atrocious decisions came by far the worst for me. Rehiring Frank Lampard was completely mental. Bringing back a manager who won just 12 out of his 44 games in charge at Everton. Todd, that's your rescue plan? Lampard straight away showed his level as a manager in the Premier League once again. His Chelsea record on his return has so far been... Let's move on. Even after all that darkness for the Blues, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is definitely a skeleton for a really good team. To do that, let's take a look at 2 things that Chelsea should concentrate on to transform the whole club moving forward. The first is what your mum, auntie and nan know. The squad has to be trimmed. There is no ifs, buts or maybes. The FFP are knocking. By the end of this season, Chelsea will have 45, I repeat, 45 players who are eligible for first team football. That's 4 starting 11s. The Premier League squad limit is 25, with only 17 non-homegrown players allowed, making it a minimum of 8 homegrown players in your squad. So you can see how getting rid of players while still complying with the regulations of 8 homegrown players becomes complicated. With the need for sales, some first team regulars will have to move on in an attempt to balance out the books and reduce the squad number. So who goes and who stays? Well, that's where their new manager comes in. He has to be heavily involved in building the structure and profile of the players who stay. And the question is, can Mauricio Pochettino build a winning team with all of the assorted players who stay? From what he did at Tottenham with limited resources, pushing the young and energetic North London team to their best, he can surely go a step further with Chelsea's resources and the top range talent that Bowley is willing to buy. He just has to get the blend right, because they will be tasked with implementing Pochettino's high pressing attacking style of football in his favoured 4-2-3-1 formation. Hypothetically, from the squad Chelsea currently have, this lineup, given time, could trouble any team if coached and guided properly, with a clear identity of play emphasised by the manager. Let's take it a step further. Imagine adding a player like Osimhen, Vlahovic or even Harry Kane to this team. They become contenders straight away in all competitions. And there's something very interesting to that last point. In the 2015-16 season, Chelsea finished 10th in the Premier League, the season in which Jose Mourinho got the sack as the manager for the second time. So the following season in 2016-17, they didn't play in any European competition, and Chelsea being Chelsea, missing out on Europe ended up being a blessing in disguise. Without the extra fixtures of European competition, they went on to win the Premier League title that season with Antonio Conte. So for the Blues, next season might, just might, end up being a special one. You never know if all this mess is sorted out. Till next time, peace!